to the Be My Guest podcast, where we interview inspiring entrepreneurs who share their stories and their insights and much, much more. You made a great choice tuning in today to the Be My Guest podcast. Welcome and enjoy the show. Hey guys, this is Frankie with Be My Guest podcast. We have another great episode today with another great guest that I'm excited to share with you today. Before I do, let me remind you, you can be a guest on our podcast right here at Be My Guest Podcast by going to our website, BeMyGuestPodcast.com. That's BeMyGuestPodcast.com. Click on Get Interview. We'd love to talk to you about being our next interview right here on the podcast. Without further ado, I want to bring on our guest for today, Jason Stonehouse. Jason, what's going on, brother? Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be here.
Awesome, man. We'll take a moment, if you can, share who you are, what you do, and how you got started.
Yeah. So I actually work with executives, entrepreneurs, people that are dealing with high capacity situations and really dealing with the issues of stress, anxiety, overwhelm, overthinking, all of those things that tend to plague us, kind of that inner battle that everybody seems to deal with and nobody wants to talk about. So I get to come in and coach and provide resources. I'm also an author. I've written a number of books. And another thing I do, probably my main gig, is I actually am a pastor. So I work with the church and do that. But this is kind of something that I've been doing on the side. And really how I got started in it is actually I was dealing probably for more than a decade with severe crippling anxiety, panic attacks, and dealing with all of that while being a leader of a multi-million-dollar organization and 21 direct reports and all of the pressures and stresses that you're dealing with as a leader. And I've always kind of kept this anxiety stuff and the stress stuff. I'm just like, this is part of what it must be to be a leader. And so I just kept it secret. And the more I kept it secret, the more it just grew and became overwhelming to a point where I ended up losing everything. I lost my marriage, lost my family, lost my job, and my world just came crashing down. And I began to really go through intensive therapy and read every book I could get my hands on and really trying to figure out how do I get out of where I am, and was able to see myself get on the other side of it. And I thought to myself, I can't be the only leader that's dealing with this stuff. Maybe not the full, train wreck that ended up happening, but I knew that there would be other leaders, executives, entrepreneurs. So I began writing, I began doing posts, began doing video, and then really began coaching with these executives, CEOs, entrepreneurs who are dealing with stress and anxiety, but weren't really sure what to even call it or how to deal with it. And I developed essentially a 4-month program to really help people get on the other side of that anxiety, stress, and overwhelm. And for the last several years now, I've been coaching these folks and helping them walk them through the challenges that they face and really getting to a point of just really being healthy. Not just talking physically healthy, but just emotionally healthy, mentally healthy, spiritually healthy. So it's not really a ministry thing that I do, but it's more of working with business people in the marketplace who are really struggling with. So it's not really a faith-based thing, but obviously I'm a person of faith. So that plays into how I think and all of that. So,
yeah. So you mentioned that you're pastoring now. Is that right?
Yeah. I've been pastoring for more than 30 years. So this is something that I started doing on the side, really because I was realizing that there was a lot of people in the marketplace who were dealing with these issues that I was struggling with.
So you mentioned you had basically a meltdown of an organization you were a part of. Was that a ministry or was it a public company?
Yeah. So that was a ministry setting. But what a lot of people don't understand about ministry is that there's so many parallels to the business world in the sense of you're dealing with several $1 million budgets. You're dealing with HR issues. You're dealing with all of those kinds of strategy, vision, direction, all of that stuff.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, the central part of
organizations across the world is people, and
Right.
ministries and churches deal with people as well.
Yeah.
And ministry is a messy place. I know personally myself, so
Mm.
I understand that completely. Now, it sounded like you said that you lost a lot of things as a result of that, episode. What were you able to recover as a result of this turnaround?
Yeah, so I'm now at a point where there's a lot of rebuilding going on. I've been remarried and really beginning to see a lot of that health. I will tell you this, I am healthier today than I've ever been in my life, emotionally, spiritually, even as a leader. I think I'm a much healthier and authentic and confident leader today after going through all of that imposter syndrome, the insecurities, and all those things that I wrestled with in that part of the, to use your word, a meltdown.
Yeah, yeah. And what allows you, or what gives you the mechanism to measure that versus where you were when you didn't really know it was is really doing what it was doing before?
Yeah, I used to think that I was a victim of my emotions and a victim of my circumstances. And
Hmm.
so typically I just explained away this idea that I don't have control. I don't have the ability to change these things. I'm just feeling this. I'm just dealing with this anxiety. And I worked so hard to try to control it all and to try to fix it all and try to make it all work. And the more that I did that, the more out of control I ended up being. So
Yeah.
I think what allows me to say that I can measure that differently today is I'm able to now take responsibility for what I wasn't taking responsibility for before. I was always blaming somebody else for my emotion, blaming somebody else for my situation, or, well, the reason I'm being this way is because I'm at this job that, or I have, a demanding board, or I have whatever. And it was always somebody else's issue. And when I started to realize that I could take responsibility, what opened up for me, and this was a big aha for me, is now the fact that, so let me just say it this way: when the issues are all out there, meaning with a person or with a circumstance or a situation, you can't change it, right? Because you can't change somebody else, you can't change your
Hmm.
circumstance. When you start to learn to take responsibility for what is yours, now you actually open up this whole opportunity to bring change where previously you didn't think you could bring change. And
Hmm.
that's really the big aha that I work on with my clients, is really helping them to realize it's not about your boss. It's not about your circumstance. It's not about your salary. It's not about any of those things. It's
Right.
actually about things that you can actually take responsibility for and and you can own. And when you can own it, you can change it.
Yeah. And I can imagine, and maybe somebody that's listening or watching may not understand this, but um, I would probably venture to say maybe you agree that when you're in ministry, there's extra weight and pressure, and probably led to how much would you contribute that role leading to maybe trying to cover up some of it or not deal with it because you have to present yourself in a certain way, and you live in a glass house, so to speak, and you got to live a certain standard, which by all means is the right way to do it, but at the same time sometimes it causes, and I know others that have been through this as well, causes people to not deal with the issue. Was that a contributing factor?
Yeah, I think there is a pressure, maybe more so in the ministry realm, to at least appear that you have more together than you really do, because you're
Hmm.
thinking, I have to model or I have to show people what life is supposed to be. The interesting thing about it, though, is when I began to go public with my anxiety and my stress and some of that, it was amazing how, like, it almost became a magnet where people were drawn because they weren't used to somebody being authentic and real.
Hmm.
But you're right. I think a lot of what you're talking about is a pressure that we put on ourselves as leaders. And I think in ministry, even more so, to look like you have it together. And then what that does is it forces you to get into the mode of image management. So you're projecting an
Hmm.
image of yourself that you want people to like and you want people to see, and you start to disconnect from your authentic self. And so part of my journey of healing was really to understand who I was authentically, and that it was okay for me to struggle. In fact, it's human for me to struggle and for me to deal with these issues. And the more that I was able to be authentically myself, I was actually able to develop an authentic confidence. in who I am and who God made me to be. But
Mhm.
again, I want to be clear, like my focus in this work that we're talking about on the podcast is really more in the marketplace and not so much on ministry, because one of the things that I guess I fear sometimes when I get on these podcasts and talk about it is, oh, you're a pastor, you don't know what it's like in the real world, you don't know what, or I'm not a person of faith, so why would I be interested in this? And really, like I said, more than half my clients are people who are not people of faith. They are just dealing with all of the pressures of the marketplace world and how to process through those. So
Yeah.
yes, it informs me, but it's not the primary work that I do in this space anyway.
Yeah. But I think it's important though for
Yeah,
people to know how messy it got and
right.
the consequences of it.
Yeah,
No
absolutely.
matter who you're serving,
Right,
you know.
exactly.
And I think most people that are going through challenges to the degree that could cause them to lose their family or a lot of other things. I mean, to me, it wouldn't matter if you were coming from a pastor's position or a layman's position.
Right.
What would matter is, did you find a solution and can you help me get it too? Right.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think it's important to know. Let me ask you that question though. Why did you choose to go with the marketplace versus helping other pastors that struggled with the same thing or similar things?
I guess I really wasn't. I was trying to be broad enough that I could reach everybody. So like I said, probably close to half the people I work with are pastors and Christian leaders and things like that. So it's not that I'm opposed to working with those folks. I just don't like the stigma sometimes that gets attached to, well, you're a
Hmm.
pastor, so you must not know the real world, or you're a pastor, so you're going to try to proselytize me or evangelize me and try to make me a Christian. And I'm like,
Hmm.
no, like you said, this is a human issue and we need to
Right.
be able to deal with it. Now, I have many of my clients who will say, well, tell me about your faith and how does your faith play into that? Well, man, that'll open up a whole nother set of discussions, which I love talking about
Right.
because, I really credit God to a lot of the work. But there is some things we can do even on this side of spirituality that can say, these are just practical things about managing your emotion, understanding who you are, understanding the way you're wired, and also the way that false self and that imposter syndrome affects all types of leaders. So again, to answer your question, it's not that I'm only in that space. It's just that a lot of the work that I'm doing is primarily geared to
Yeah.
those marketplace folks. So
Well, I mean, again, I think it's important to know, how relatable it is, because that's one of the main factors
mhm.
of helping someone. Because if you're speaking a language, a magnetic language is, hey, how do you know what I'm going through?
Right.
And so I want to ask this question, and feel free to go as far as you want. But how bad did it get before change started happening?
I would say the change probably didn't happen quickly enough, and I think at the point where um, here's really what happens when you're feeling anxious and stressed. You tend to want to try to control, and when certain areas of your life feel out of control, you become maybe ultra controlling or trying to bring control in other areas, and that backfires every single time. And so I think the idea of really my staff and others just feeling that, oh, like, he's trying to manage something here that is not manageable, or why is he kind of managing to this level, or in my family saying, oh my goodness, like, that self-protection that comes in and you're trying to take care of yourself and all of that, and before you realize it, you're like, oh my goodness, I've disconnected from the people that matter most, and
Yeah.
you miss out on some of those pieces. But yeah, I mean, I'm still if you will, in a rebuilding of my life, and really trying to reconnect those relationships and all of that, which is just really, really painful and really difficult.
Yeah. And the role you were in before when this kind of crashed, was it a lead pastor role?
Yes, yeah, it was.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Hmm.
And let me ask you this question. It sounds like, even though you're in the recovery still, sounds like you were able to still come back and be in ministry. Was there a moment or time where you thought maybe that wasn't ever going to be possible again?
Yeah, I think there was definitely some seasons where I remember working like 4 or 5 jobs, and like I was substitute teaching in a school, and I was
Yeah.
building some of this business and all that. and wondering, like, am I ever going to get to use some of the things and the experience? I mean, I had 30 years of experience in this field, as well as just being a leader in a lot of different contexts. And I'm like, am I going to ever get the opportunity to do that again? And
Mhm.
yeah, it does. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, fortunately, there's people that will say, hey, I believe in you. I'll give you a chance, I'll give you an opportunity to. And that's really where I am even today is, given the opportunity now. I live in Alabama, and I'm working here, and somebody just believing in me and giving me a chance to get my legs under me again, and really get me to a place where I'm feeling much healthier than I ever was. So
Right. And I think that makes you more relatable as well, because,
mhm.
for those that are wanting to walk the Christian journey and need a church and need a pastor to lead them and shepherd them, you're just ones that, you're one that has a story that's maybe a little bit more relatable than
Mhm.
someone who hadn't tripped
Right.
and fell in the middle of some of the things that you did. So
Yeah.
commend you on that, brother. I really do. Let me ask you this: what's some of the things that allowed you to start seeing, other than the pain and the problems that were being created? What was some of the things that allowed you to start seeing that, hey, this is a serious situation, and I need to make some changes? And then what helps you keep that from going back there?
Um, it's a good question. Well, I think, when people start pulling away from you, and you start seeing those consequences of, man, I am not managing myself well. I'm not caring for myself well, and it's showing up in the way I relate with people and all of that. And you start to see, I mean, that I don't care who you are, like, unless you're a robot, like, that pulling away that relational pain of just me. I was, sobbing on my bed, at least once a week. And I, for years, really dealing with that. So that was just a wake up call to say, I don't want to. And then you start looking at yourself in the mirror and you're saying, this is not who I want to be. This is not the
Hmm.
kind of person I want to be. Um, and yet feeling like I don't know a way out. And that's what really drove me to say, I think, first of all, and I do want to give, the primary focus on to the Lord, because I think I came to a point of such dependence where I had, like, I thought I hit bottom, and then I didn't realize there was 2 or 3 floors yet to
Mm.
go. And then,
Wow.
really came crashing, and just realizing that there's this interesting passage in the Bible where the Apostle Paul talks about this thorn that he has in the side, and
Hmm.
and he says that in his weakness, that's when he got to experience the power of God in a very
Right.
unique way. And so for me, it's just like I got to, in the midst of my weakness, realize that that is the place that I can experience God in a way that I never did before. But then on the pragmatic side of just saying, my master's degree is in counseling. So I have a background in this, and then to start reading everything and getting intensive therapy for myself, and really beginning to understand how I'm wired, and really beginning to take, again, responsibility, as far as to guard myself against the future. I don't even recognize that man anymore, to be honest with you. And I
Yeah.
think it really comes down to that issue of, and this is one thing I say in my book, The Common Confident Leader. I say, we are 100% responsible for everything we think, everything we feel, and everything we do. 100%. And so nobody can make you mad. Nobody can make you think something or whatever. Like, you are responsible for that. And when I realized that, I realized I could change how I think, I can change how I feel, and I can change what I do. And so that just opened up this whole world for me of just really beginning to understand how change happens and how we can actually be transformed. And yes, you add the spiritual piece to that, that transformation, it becomes all encompassing. But I think for a lot of my clients, I was at least able to put them on a path towards real, true emotional health, and really being able to think better, developing mindsets that are able to um, uh, walk more authentically and more
Right.
healthy. So
Gotcha. That's good. What would you say, let me just ask you this: on that journey that you were in, did it lead to some root discovery of the causes of some of the stuff, or was it,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I would
talk
say
more about that if you can.
yeah, yeah. And that's really I love that you brought that up because that is really the primary work that I do. A lot of what I see in this space of anxiety and stress is I think more symptom relief and
Hmm.
not really dealing with the root. And so one of the things that I would say is my specialty or the niche that I've developed is really getting to what's the root underneath that thing. So I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling stressed, or I'm trying to micromanage or whatever. What's underneath that? And usually what's underneath that is a belief, a core belief, a way of thinking. And what I've discovered is most of those core beliefs are things that were formed when we're like 9, 10, 11 years old. And we have been living that way for so long that it's almost like breathing. It's almost like oxygen for us. And so when somebody comes along like me as a coach and I say, hey, did you know that this is what's fueling this? And it's like so foreign to them because again, it's been so ingrained and it's such a part of their life. So like for me, I grew up really focused on performing. I always wanted to I felt like my acceptance and my way of protecting myself against rejection and abandonment was really this issue of performing. I'm going to do my very best. I'm going to be perfect. I'm going to get it right. And if I am not perfect, I'm going to at least present an image like I do have more together than I really do, and really demonstrating it that way. So that was for me at the root of a lot of what I was doing. And so that insecurity of what if somebody finds out that I'm really not as good as I say I am? What if somebody
Yeah.
finds out that I'm flawed? And so really being able to move in a different direction that way. And that's really what I do with a lot of my clients is we focus on what's getting to the root of the issue and then rewiring our thinking around what is healthy beliefs rather than unhealthy or flawed beliefs.
Yeah. Let's transition over to the business side of coaching and
Sure.
doing what you do. What was it like taking the experience you went through and are in some ways still going through and packaging it up, so to speak, and being able to offer it out? What was that like taking that leap out there?
Yeah, it was so fun. It's so fun to see the breakthroughs. And, one of the interesting things that happened through the coaching journey is like I would have CEOs and executives, and their spouses would contact me, and their spouses would say, what did you do to my husband? What did you do to my wife? Like they are a totally different person. Like I had one wife who said to me, my husband, when we used to go on vacation, he just couldn't turn it off. And she's like, now he's actually relaxing. He's having a cup of coffee and, like he's not go, 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 even on vacation. And she's
Mhm.
like, so when I started seeing some of that outcome and seeing people who were typically, they weren't able to turn it off, now able to experience something so different, that was just really exciting for me. And what I think made it so reliable and authentic is it was my journey. I just learned how to re-engineer it so that I could actually help other people through that journey. And so I walked through 3 major steps of really envisioning what's really going on and envisioning who you really want to be, who to use our language, who God wired you up to be. But I just call it your best version of you, 2.0.
Mhm.
What is 2.0 you? And then I talk about ownership, which we've talked a lot about already on this podcast, about owning and taking responsibility. And then the last page or the last stage is implement. And it's really talking about how do I actually implement this? So my whole goal as being a coach was never to make a business out of it. My whole focus of it was how can I get in and get out and give you all the tools you need to do this on your own.
Yeah.
So I did not want to develop a model where you were dependent on me as a coach. I wanted to get in and get out and give you everything you need. In fact, one of the things that I just released is an online course where I essentially coach you over video and give you all the tools, and you can get that course for a lot less money than you could get if you did one-on-one coaching with
Right.
me for 4 months.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. And when you first stepped out and started this venture of coaching, what was some of the ways that people started finding out about your solution and your support and your coaching? How did you attract those people to you?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was through social media, sharing my story, putting posts up there, doing blogs, doing videos, getting on TikTok,
So
Facebook.
you were very transparent about what was going
Yep.
on and how you were going, what you were going through, in some of the solutions that you're finding?
Yeah, just giving away a lot of content, because again, my heart in doing this is not to make money. It's really to help leaders who are like me and who are going through some of the same struggles that I was going through.
Yeah. And being a pastor, I'm sure that's full time, or at least I would assume it is something like
Yes,
that,
yeah.
right?
Yes, yeah, it
How
is. So
much?
this is something I just do. Then that's why I really built the online course, to be honest with you, is I just can't take a client load anymore
Yeah.
now that I'm back pastoring that I used to do. So most of it is through my online accessibility
Yeah.
at this point. So
Well, with that in mind, where do you want to take this? I mean, what do you see, where you see it going? What's kind of your vision with it?
I think I just want to be able to be a resource. And, I wrote The Calm and Confident Leader, which is really a lot of what I do in a book form. And then my most recent book is called The Me I Want to Be, and really details a lot of my journey towards more on the faith side, but how to become that person that you're meant to be, that you're wired up to be. And so that's my latest book. So I'm able to do some of the things through my writing and through my video and through my online courses. And then, I'll still take on a client here or there that I'll work with, but it's mostly on my day off, and, just for an hour here or there to be able to invest in those folks. Because I know when you're in that, and I know for me doing this, and I was more aware of my stress and anxiety at least 15, 20 years of doing it. And I was like, there was nobody I could talk to. And I just felt very lonely. And it felt like, does anybody get this? Does anybody understand what I'm dealing with? So I know those people are out there. So I want to be able to be a blessing and be an encouragement to those folks and show them a way out, show them a way forward. Because you don't have to live with this. You can get on the other side of it.
If you could give people maybe a little bit of hypothetical walkthrough of what it's like working with you.
Yeah, I think what we do is I will meet usually with my clients for about an hour a week over a Zoom call. And then I give them tools and homework and things that they work on. And then when we get back together the next week, we're really spending the first half of that going through what you discovered about yourself by using the tools and homework that I've given you. And then we'll spend the next half hour really teaching you new content and new ways of processing it. And the cool thing when I do, and I really don't do any group coaching, and the main reason is everything I do is customized for what you need. So it's not like a set program. Yes, there's certain content that I work, but even in real time, I'm customizing it for your story, what you're dealing with, what the challenges are, and helping you uncover what those root issues are that are plaguing you and hindering you. So
yeah, makes sense. And so, Jason, if you could share with anybody anything that we didn't get to cover on here, just so the audience knows more about what you do and what you offer.
Sure. I mean, are you talking about how they can get in contact with me and really...
anything that we didn't cover that you want to share?
Yeah,
including that.
I think one of the biggest things that people don't realize as leaders is the power that fear plays. We call it anxiety, we call it stress, but it really at the root of it is fear. And so I developed a tool that I wanted to share with your audience called Do It Anyway, which outlines the 5 fears that destroy confidence and derail success. And really, this is there's an assessment built into it and a workbook that's built into it. And I want to give it for free to your audience. So you can find that on my website. There's actually a link on my website. It's called Do It Anyway. And it's jasonstonehouse.com. So real easy to remember, jasonstonehouse.com. Just scroll a little bit and you'll see I have 2 or 3 different free resources there for folks. So I really do want to help. And then, once you get on my website, you can find my new course and all the stuff that we talked about here today, and people can contact me that way. jasonstonehouse.com.
Yeah, let me put that down there for everybody that's watching, scrolling across the screen there. So make sure you go and check out Jason's website, check out the information he offers for those of you who are dealing with some of the things he talked about, the stresses, the anxiety, how to, figure out solutions and get out of those things and actually have some permanent fixes. Jason, I appreciate your time today and sharing with the audience. So be my guest.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. This is great.
Yeah, just stick right there and we'll be right back with you.
You've been watching Be My Guest podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to be a guest on our podcast, go to BeMyGuestPodcast.com. That's BeMyGuestPodcast.com. actionable.com.